Hi, this is my four-door hot rod. Why is it unique, you asked? I'm going to show you in this video.
Hi, I'm Larry. This is my channel, Miller's Rods and Mods. I'm just your average guy that works on anything and everything, big or small, from custom fabrication to routine maintenance. In the process, my family and I do our best to have a little fun. As I learn to perfect my skills, follow along and enjoy. Let me first start by saying, this isn't the first time I built this hot rod. The first time, everything looked pretty good, but I just wasn't happy with it. In this video, I'll show you some of the differences and what I liked and didn't like about the previous build. Now I'm going to show you the hot rod I really wanted to build. Let's start with the heart of every hot rod, and that's the engine. This is an OM 606 Mercedes diesel engine. It comes out of a Mercedes E300 from years 97 to 99. As with any turbo diesel, it's going to have a bigger turbo on it. It's going to have a bigger pump on it. And yes, it's going to make plenty of power. Let's start at the beginning. We wanted to change the chassis from the previous hot rod. So we went and got a chassis that had two pickups, front and rear. But as you can see in this picture, the chassis was way too wide for the body of the Model A. So we narrowed it and massaged it a little so that it would fit right inside the Model A. After we got the cutting and the measuring all done, we ended up sandblasting it to get it down to bare metal, get it all cleaned up. After that, it's time to get the stance right. So we worked on that for a little while, then we started with the suspension. Up front, we've got a dropped, drilled I-beam axle with hairpin radius rods, complete with our shorty shocks and a sway bar. I'm not sure if the sway bar is going to help any with the leaf spring setup, but if it doesn't, we'll take it off. Now we will have Willwood front disc brakes. I haven't put them on yet because there's no need while we're fabricating and making a mess. I haven't decided on the fake Buick front drums yet. We'll see later on down the road if we want to go that route or not. Everything on this front suspension that could be made by hand was made by hand. So look closely and you might catch a few of the pieces. Out back, we've got the massive Winners quick change rear end with a triangulated 4-link that's fully adjustable to maximize traction and handling with adjustable coilovers behind the rear. This rear has a locking differential, but we have a limited slip just in case it gives us too much trouble going around corners and chirping the tires. So either or, it's still going to be one hell of a setup. The suspension isn't complete yet, so a lot of things are just tacked in place, but soon enough, they'll be welded solid. Now let's get started with the body, or what's left of one. The inner structure of this used to be wood. I took all the wood out and had to, a couple of times, put inner structure in it. The first time I didn't like it, you know, as you've seen before in the earlier hot rod. So I tore all that out, and what I have right now is 1/8" plate, mainly because I want to take the B pillar out, and I want it to be really strong so the body would have a lot less flex to it. It's going to be a little heavier, but it will keep everything from moving around too much, I believe. Like I mentioned earlier, this isn't going to have any B pillar in it. When we open both doors, it's going to be wide open. There's 2 bear claw latches on the rear door and 1 on the front. It ought to be safe. And we shouldn't have any issues with the doors flying open going down the road. Up here next, you'll see the tops of the doors with the crossbars for the roof. Should be plenty strong. There's going to be some more supports in there. Here you can see some of the framing of the door and the latches that I was talking about earlier. And that's what it'll look like there with the wide open. This is the finished side of the rockers. I think it looks pretty good. Should be plenty strong for what I'm trying to do here. There's one of the latches. Yeah, the thickness of this plate might be a little overkill, but I just want to make sure it's safe. It doesn't have any issues flexing. But the inner floor will be thinner. It'll be 20 gauge sheet metal, but I just want the rockers and the structure around the door to be nice and solid. It has taken such a long time to get to this point, mainly because there's so much to consider. For instance, I wanted to make the hood from scratch, but I can't do that until the body is completely bolted to the chassis, because if it moves while making the hood, obviously it'll mess it up. Obviously I could go on and on and on about all the different things you got to think of ahead of time in order to do a project like this, but I won't bore you with that. I'll just tell you it's a process. Here's one more example. When I did the door handle coming through and into the latch on the front doors, I did it once, and here it didn't clear. I put a dummy window in there and it wouldn't clear, and so I had to cut everything out and do it again. So everything is learning. You know, you're just learning as you go and figuring these things out. I'm not an expert. I'm just an amateur that has a lot of drive and a lot of passion for the automobile and hot rods, just like a lot of other people, a lot of you out there. I talked earlier about making a custom-made hood. Well, I also want to make the grill from scratch. And what you see here is a wire form buck. A buck is simply a pattern that you use to shape your metal around, just something to go off of. I also made this from scratch. Some bucks are made out of wood, but in this case we're using the wire form idea. Now this idea was pretty cool. I wanted to make a different dash instead of having the stock dash. This dash is from a 1952 Plymouth. We chopped, I think, like 6 inches out of it, narrowed it up and everything, and I think it's pretty neat. It's just another way I could personalize it and make this hot rod my own. Someone asked me once, why'd you put a 52 Plymouth dash in your hot rod? Well, honestly, I found it in a swap meet and it was in good shape, and it's different. Here we have a similar steering to what we're going to use in this hot rod. It's a manual steering that usually comes in sprint cars or sportsman race cars. A lot of the hot rodders back in the day used similar units as this, try to keep the weight down, and also because of the tight areas that they had, the steering comes out of the side of the body from right here on a pitman arm, and then it moves. So it gives them a lot more room in the engine bay to stuff a big engine in there. So earlier we were talking about the steering. Here's where it comes out of the body. This is just a cover, trying to keep rainwater from going down in this hole, but you gotta cut a hole in the cowl, and then you make a mount, usually either on the floor or off of the firewall, to hold the other end of it. And then it comes out here, and then of course your arm goes back and forth, and that connects up front here. See, it's a hole. There we go. It connects up front here into this hole, and then steers your hot rod around. One thing I didn't mention earlier is what for transmission we put behind this. We have an adapter plate from a guy that his company's called Diesel Pump UK. Obviously over in, I believe, England. I got the adapter plate from him, and behind this he has multiple different adapter plates for all kinds of different transmissions. You can put BMW behind this engine. You can put Chevy and just about any Chevy tranny you want behind this engine. But I decided to choose the CD009. If any of you have ever seen Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift, you remember the villain in that video, and he had what you call a 350Z Nissan. Pretty neat car. They're pretty neat looking. Well, those they're known for guys putting LSs in those and swapping them in. And this particular transmission is known to make hold up to like 1,200 horsepower. They put twin turbos on them LSs. They swap them in those cars, and they're very, very durable. They're very strong in their transmissions, and they hold up to the abuse. So I'm not planning on making 1,200 horsepower with this engine, but it should be plenty of, should be beefy enough to take what I want to throw at it.
Go!
Okay, so on this side, there's still a lot of work to do. We got that side done as far as the doors, and we have to cut this inner rocker to make the doors fit in a little bit better. So I think in a future episode we're going to tackle that. Another neat thing that I kind of added to this, a special touch. These hubcaps are not Mercedes hubcaps. Some of you can recognize that because of the wheels. The wheels are Ford. And then these are hubcaps from a Ford, but I cut the V8 out of here, and then I put a piece of the steel behind that, and tack weld that in place, and then I put modern Mercedes emblems on there, just to give you a little hint of what's under the hood. All right, up front here, we got another interesting unit. This is a intercooler of a 5.9 Cummins that I cut and narrowed. I haven't yet welded it, so hopefully the metal will cooperate with me and we'll get it welded nice sooner than later. Behind that is the single stage radiator. It's not like a multiple stage where it goes back and forth across the radiator. We might change that, put a few baffles in it to help that. And then there'll be an electric fan right here, and in front of the intercooler there's actually going to be the oil cooler. So there's a lot of stuff to stuff in this little area here. So hopefully everything works out, everything will stay cool and do what it's supposed to in that tight little area. But we'll have to find out. We'll get it running, and I guess that's part of the fun, figuring out your hot rod after it's built, after it's finished. So it's not actually finished when it's finished.
Action. Okay. As I know, my dad made this car for me, and I always like it. But it used to be a hot rod, and a fire truck, but now we turned it into a hot rod. I always like when Dad makes old stuff. And Dad always makes things like hot rods and vehicles for us, and we always enjoy it. And
are you gonna race?
I hope you enjoy. Okay, cut.
Earlier I said we bought a chassis with double kickups. So they had a kickup in the front and a kickup in the rear. Basically what it means is the chassis isn't flat. It has a bend of some sort so that the center of the car is lower. It basically lowers the car. But anyway, I never mentioned what kind of chassis we used. We had been walking around flea market in Hershey, the antique auto flea market, and a guy had a 1940 Ford chassis. Now, I was looking for a 32. A lot of guys use 32, especially in their Model A, and they seem to fit really, really well. I didn't want to pay those prices, so I thought I'd probably end up cutting it up anyway, so why don't we try the 40. So we put the 40 underneath it, and as you saw in some of the pictures, we had to narrow it quite a bit. And I know some people have seen pictures of this car and they're like, my God, that's a long wheelbase. It's really not that long. It's the same wheelbase as a 1940 Ford, maybe a little shorter. It could be shorter, but it's only, I think it's 112 inches wheelbase. It's just that the body is so small. It looks, and the length of the hood is going to be so long, so it just looks kind of, it looks that long. But it's same as a 1940 Ford. But yeah, it should be rigid. We're going to box the frame after we get all the mounts done, and hopefully it'll do a good job for us. On this side of the engine, we're going to have a big exhaust manifold. I'm going to custom make that. I've made exhaust in the past on the previous engine that was in this hot rod, and I really enjoyed that. It was a lot of fun to do. So I'm looking forward to this, but I want to make sure that the body's sitting solid on here. I said earlier about making a custom hood. You got to get it solid and make sure it's going to stay where it's at before you move forward. And if I would happen to make, it's going to be tight in here, so if I'd happen to make an exhaust manifold and it'd be a little too close one way or the other, then I'm going to have to cut it up and redo it again, and I really don't want to do that. So this is another piece from Diesel Pump UK. It's the exhaust manifold flange. It's really, really thick to prevent warping. I think the runners, they're millimeters, but they're basically similar to 1 5/8 runners. And yeah, I think we're going to bring the turbo, we're going to bring the pipes out, away, and then up, and then down like this. And the turbo, I think, is going to sit about here. Alright, so I'm sure you all want to know how much power, how much horsepower, how much torque is this little Mercedes capable of, right? It's a 3.0. if you go to Diesel Pump UK's website, or his YouTube channel, I should say, not his website, he has a 69 Dodge Charger, and he has had that dynoed at 700 horsepower. Now, for this being half the size of a 5.9 Cummins, that's a lot of motor. That's a lot of power. I don't plan on making quite that much. I have a pump that's built by a guy in Texas called Benz, of course. He also helped me pick out the turbo for this particular build. It is designed the way he had built it. It should make around 400 horsepower, but also can be turned up to about 600. I don't know if I'm going to need that much power for something like this, but it's nice to know that it was built for that, so I don't have to get another pump and have it gone over again. But yeah, so then usually with a diesel, you double that in torque. So if I make 600 horsepower, it should be 1,200 foot-pounds of torque, which is a lot for a car this small. But it ought to be plenty to get up and go and have some fun. Now, you might ask, why Mercedes? You've got Ford, Chevy, Dodge, you got all kinds of engine swaps you could do. Why Mercedes? Well, again, big thing is I like to be different. I don't want something that somebody else has. You know, we walked around one year at Hershey and, hey, found this body with a title. That's how this all started. And I was like, well, that's different. You don't see many four-door Model A's, not to mention, I'm a big guy, as you can tell, and I don't know that I could fit in a coupe comfortably. I think I might be a little too big. But yeah, why Mercedes? I want to be different, but I also used to have a four-door sedan that I bought right after my first son was born. It was an E320 CDI. Awesome car, absolutely awesome car. Got great fuel mileage, but it was a daily driver. You know, I didn't want to hot rod it and run into problems every day. But I absolutely love that car. It was a great piece of machinery. I love the way Mercedes engineered all the different things. Anytime I worked on it, I enjoyed it. Some people hate them, but I loved them. The only thing I didn't like was the electronics. And the more I started going back into the history of Mercedes, I'm typically a Ford guy, but when I went back into the history of Mercedes, just the way they engineered things, the way they did things is just beautiful. Like, if you really look at the old race cars, they're gorgeous. Not to say that the Americans, you know, I'm American, not to say that we didn't do it as good or better or what have you, but you know, they just have a different way of how they engineer and how they build things. And I just was I liked that. Ever since I've had that car, I really enjoyed them. And who knows, maybe we'll do something with a Mercedes down the road, like an older Mercedes. But for now, we got projects. We have this one, we got the custom over there. We have other ones that are around here that need to get finished before we bring another project into this garage, because I'm only one guy and I can only work on one at a time. Now I'll bounce back and forth off of these two here, but yeah, one at a time is what I keep trying to tell myself anyway. Alright, so I just want to kind of go over a few things. What does the future hold for this project? What's the intentions? What am I trying to do here? You know, I grew up with my dad racing all his life, and I don't have the funds necessarily to go do something like that, especially nowadays. It's a lot more expensive than it was in his day. But I would like to autocross this, and I would like to drag race it. Now, obviously, they're not going to let me go drag race with wire wheels. So these are not necessarily going to be the wheels that we go out and, you know, rip and tear with. I have other sets of wheels that I want to put on it that are a little wider just for that occasion. But I don't know whether to make this a vlog. I'm new to this YouTube thing, so I don't know whether to make this a vlog on, hey, what are we doing today on the hot rod? What are we doing today on the custom? So I've done a lot of how-to videos, but maybe I'll try to go that route. But I think I'm just going to, you know, make this the first video of many that, you know, hey, this is what I'm working on today, and this is why I'm working on this today. And as we go along, it'll be good documentation for this project. This hot rod is near and dear to my heart. I've had so many memories, you know, with my family in it, just working on it, you know, whether it be we get the dash in and my son wanted to turn Pippi Longstocking the video on. God, I hate that song. But, you know, stuff like, he's like, I'm going to press this button, Pippi Longstockings. I said, we are not playing Pippi Longstocking this hot rod. Oh, yeah, we are. And then he started singing it. Of course he did. But, I mean, memories like that, you can't replace that. You can't. Yeah, I built this mainly, you know, my dad and I used to go to the Turkey Rod Run in Daytona. And we always used to walk around there and look at the neat hot rods and different things the guys would build and the unique things you could see. And I always wanted to have one. And so, and I wanted to prove it to myself that I could build one. So here we are. And this is the journey we're taking. It's been a long journey to get to the point where we are right now. But I work full time. I've got a family to take care of, and I fit this in when I can. So there's, you know, Dad needs help with something, you know, work on his truck or whatever, I'm there. So unfortunately this is not main priority, but when I can make videos, we will do that. We will, I want to try to make this more of a priority rather than doing the shoebox, and if I get frustrated, we'll go back to the shoebox. But I want to thank you all for watching. I appreciate all of your support, I really do. Encouraging me to make these videos. I think it's fun. I enjoy doing this. If you have any questions, please comment below. Share to all your friends. Show them, you know, what a cool project this is. You know, if you want to subscribe, see more of these videos, and like. Likes are always helpful with getting these videos pushed out. So until next time.